Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Athletic School podcast. Today, we do not have a guest speaker. Today is going to be only me, but I do have a few things that I want to talk to you guys about. In just a little bit of the introduction, as a lot of you guys know, I came to the US to play soccer, and I've been here since then. I got my bachelor's degree, I got my master's degree in playing soccer at all times. I play soccer back home in Brazil. Um, Now I don't play as much. I still play, but I'm focusing on training for an Ironman that I want to do in August. And this journey that I've been going through here in the US, away from my family, trying to pursue the goal of playing soccer in the next level, trying to perform. Um, Things doesn't go as we planned, and the biggest thing for me was to find meaning outside the sport of soccer, which is the one that I've been playing. And I want to talk to you guys about that. How to find meaning outside the sport. And I think the first thing is, why is that's important? Why that's a thing? Well, you know, I think some of us, we play sports in high school, and then we stop, and then we go to college and we kind of retire right after college. Some people go professional, and some people go into 30, 30 something, 40, who knows, and then they stop playing. I think it is important for us to find meaning in life outside the sport that we play for multiple things. First, because whenever you stop playing that sport, you're gonna find yourself lost in a way. And I don't want you guys to go through that. I don't think anyone should be going through that. Which brings me to my second point. Uh, I do think you should be all in the sport that you play, but it is extremely important for us to understand that before being athletes, we are human beings, right? So we have to take care, uh, have to take care of ourselves first as a human being, and then the athlete. And trust me, both go slightly very very close together in your entire life. And we all know that how important it is to practice something, to be active in a way, in terms of being healthy and having a good life, right? But I think for us, when we're talking about competitive sports, there's a lot of things involved, and I think sometimes we can get frustrated with results, amount of playing time you're getting, all those things. And that's why it is very important to understand that you have a meaning in your life besides the sport that you're playing, right? Because you don't play the sport that you're playing forever. You can do that. It's just a fact. It's not opinion, it's a fact. You can play the sport that you're playing forever. You might extend your career a long time, but at the end of the day, you're gonna retire at one day, and you're gonna have to be able to transition to something else, right? So let's let's talk about that. I have prepared a few things here that I want to talk to you guys about. And the first thing I want you guys to do in order to find meaning in your life is, I want you to stop, sit down, and write it down, five things that you love outside the sport. And it can be anything. It can be a little bit general. It can be family, it can be your friends, or I don't know, reading books or playing video games. Who knows? Five things that you like to do outside the sport. And then once you're done with that, I want you to create a second list where you're gonna pick five feelings that you like, that you feel when you're playing the sport you play, right? And that can be maybe teamwork, competition, flow state, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on. Discipline, or maybe it's the grind of the process, or it is winning, who knows, right? So I want you to do those things, and I want you to look at that. And I think that will help you bring a little bit of more self-awareness to it. and I think you'll be able to come up with the right idea, the right response for that question on who you are, who you truly are outside the sport. And remember, at the end of the day, I'm gonna give you my thoughts, but you have to create meaning in your life. I cannot do that to you. Your family can't do that for you. Your friends, nobody, your coach, no, it's only you, or the only person that can do that. And I also want you to create a who am I journal. And I want you to talk about who you are, who you are, because you are not a soccer player, right? You're more than that. You are not a basketball player, not a volleyball player. You're more than that. So I want you to try to write who you are, and just see like what things come up with that, right? What How would people describe you um outside the sport that you're playing? And there's another technique called the reverse highlight reel. So instead of focusing your best moments in your sport, I want you to write down three things you felt lost, but you found a way out. How did you do them? And how can you apply the resilience now, right? Because I think what's great about sports is it teaches a lot in terms of life on how to handle things, right? We just have to learn on how to connect that piece and how to transition that to other areas in our lives. And that's why it's important for us to have other areas in our life that we can we can perform in a way. And in that journal, every night for a week, I want you to write it down one thing that gave you that day a meaning, right? So think about your day at the end of the night, write it down, just one thing that gave you meaning, and it can be anything. But at the end of the week, I want you to look for patterns that you had. What keeps showing up on those things, right? Is it work? Is it my family? Am I doing for my family? Am I doing for my partner? Or am I doing for myself? Why do you do the things that you do? And once you have that self-awareness, I think it's important for you to sit down with yourself one more time. And that's when it can be tricky sometimes, but I think it's important for you to sit down and meditate on those things, right? So a lot of the times you're gonna have a passion for competition, right? Like for example, for me, I have a hard time um, playing recreational soccer where people don't want to win, right? But you can translate that into other areas in your life. Yes, you can still play the sport that you want, but you can start a business, you can become a coach, who knows, right? And you can try to learn something new, learn a new language, learn a new skill, right? So you can add that competition piece of it in something else in your life. Maybe it's the team environment, right? So maybe it's building a community. Maybe it's mentoring younger athletes, maybe being a coach and focusing on the mentoring side more of it. Maybe, I don't know, joining a running club or creating your own club that you guys talk about whatever you want to talk about, those things. Or maybe it's discipline, the routine, and that's when, for me, it was huge for me to start the preparation for the Ironman. Is because I do have a little bit more of a schedule. It's still very crazy, to be honest, but I have a setting plan where I have to do this, I have to do that, and there is a day, the event date, even though it's just one, it's pretty far away. It's like kind of game day for me, right? So those things. And maybe you love inspiring other people, and honestly, I think this one, it is a little bit more tricky, and you have to, because everyone has something to share, and I think that's valuable. But I think it's also important that you can share your story, you can start a podcast like I'm doing it, you can start creating content. But I think it's very important that we are adding value to other people's lives, right? Don't create content, don't make a podcast just to show off that you have a podcast, right? Why do you do the things that you do? So always ask that question to yourself. Why do you do the things that you do? Right. So the next one, there's an idea that I want to share with you guys. It's called the self-determination theory. And it talks a little bit about why athletes struggle with that transition, right? So the key idea is humans need three things to feel fulfilled. One is autonomy, the second one is competence, and the third one is relatedness. So in sports, we actually have all of them. That's why it's so good. We feel so good when we're playing, right? We have the autonomy, the control over training, the competition, and kind of like we have to perform and all of that. The second one, we have the skill development, the competence, right? The like I'm capable of playing the sport that I'm playing. And then the third one is the relatedness, where it comes to teamwork, creating a community. Maybe it's just you and your coach and a few other players. Maybe you are on a football team, on a soccer team where there's way more people involved. So whenever you stop playing the sport that you're playing, you have to look for those three things in other areas in your life in order to feel fulfilled. Again, this is just an idea. This is just a theory that that was created, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense to me, and I think you guys should pursue that. So an exercise is what outside of the sports make you feel in control, skilled, and connected. So ask those questions to yourself and think about it, because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to think about it. You're gonna have to go and you're gonna have to go sit down with yourself only, and you have to meditate on those things. And I understand that some people might be uncomfortable with those things, but it is very important to know who you truly are in order to achieve your best self. um, Another important thing that we have a lot in sports is the flow state, right? When when you go do something and it's 2 hours later and it feels like it was 20 minutes. That's the flow state, right? We don't watch the clock. The time goes by so quickly. You have to look for other things that makes you feel the same way. And you know I don't think it's the most healthy one, but maybe it is playing video games. It's going to a coffee shop and reading. Right? It becomes tricky. Don't Let's not try to transition to other things. Like, yeah, I like to go to bars and go to parties where I don't see the time passing by. Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're trying to find meaningful things to do outside our sports, right? So maybe it's reading a book, maybe it's going to a coffee shop with your friends, maybe it's going to brunch and spending the weekend um, out of town, going somewhere else. Maybe it's going to talk to your grandma and just stay there and create um, that that connectivity that you guys might have, right? I went to Brazil not too long ago, and one of the things that I enjoyed the most was being at home with my grandparents, or we went to the beach and we just stayed there for hours and we would talk. We would sometimes go to the ocean and come back and get tanning, and we'll just stand there and like it felt like 20 minutes, but we're there for 4 hours, right? And at the end of the day, actually, it I came back to the US and it felt like I was there for a day, but I was there for a week. Right? So those things that I did there are very important things that brings me oxytocin, serotonin, which are hormones that gives us that feeling of fulfillment. Right? So we want to look for things like that. And there's another idea from Viktor Frankl, which is that he wrote a book called Men Searching for Meaning. The key idea is meaning isn't given to us, we create it, right? So that's basically what we're talking about the entire podcast. You create the meaning that you want to have in your life. Nobody can give you a meaning, right? So if you are playing soccer, and I will use soccer because it's a little bit easier, or let's say football, right? You are the quarterback, and your job is to make passes and good passes. Well, that's not the meaning in your life to be a awesome quarterback. Maybe in sports it might be, but you are someone. You have so much outside of the sport that you can create value, that you have meaning, not only for yourself but for others, the people around you as well. So you actually create the meaning that you want to have in life. You don't let people give it to you, right? um, and the good example is this author. He found meaning by helping others, in suffering. There's a quote that I'll read, which says, when we are no longer able to change the situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So a lot of the times we have to retire from sport, we have to stop playing the sport that we want, and we have to challenge ourselves with something else. It might be writing a book, it might be going to get a job, and try to be the best that you can in that job. Maybe it's running an Ironman, maybe it's playing something else, maybe it's learning a new language. So you actually can pick and choose what you want. Your purpose isn't just competing, it is growth. So discipline and impact, so the impact that you have in other people's lives, in your life, and how much you grow as a person, right? We grow a lot in sports, but let's say you go professional, maybe you're gonna retire when you're 36, 40, maybe the latest, and you can stop growing when you're 40, right? And I know that a lot of people that are listening, they're not 40, but maybe you stop playing in high school. Now it's time for you to go to college, maybe it's time for you to get a job, right? So what are you going to do? What meaning are you gonna have in your life outside the sport, when you don't have the soccer games, you don't have the games on the weekends and the training every day? What are you going to do to find the meaning that you need in your life in order to have a happy and fulfilled life? One thing that I mentioned as well that I think is very important, um, there's a book, if I'm not mistaken, the Courage to Be Disliked, and it's about the external validation, right? I think a lot of us, we might start playing the sport that we're playing because we're looking for an external validation. So it is important that we are not looking for those things, right? Sometimes we might stop playing the sport that we're playing, and then we're going to start for looking for external validation in other things. Like I was saying, like in a party, or maybe you're going to start creating content, right? Make sure you're adding value to the people that you are trying to connect with, right? You don't want to just get more followers and more likes and more shares, right? You want to add something to them, because that's what gonna make you feel fulfilled. It might feel good to have more likes, more views, and more listeners and all of that, but at the end of the day, it's about adding value to other people. That will make you feel more fulfilled. That's something that I struggled as well, when I was playing. Sometimes sitting on the bench, it sucks a lot, and not having the validation from the coach or from your teammates, it can be extremely hard to deal with mentally. And I think it's important for us to understand that, look, yes, it sucks, right? But maybe the coach is wrong, maybe you are wrong, maybe you have to get better, right? And that's when you start to grow again. um, but don't be a victim, right, in those scenarios. But also don't look for external validation. If the coach doesn't want you, if your teammate doesn't like you, well, you have to have the courage to be disliked, and do things that people might not like it, right? Maybe it's calling out your teammate, maybe it's going to ask your coach, look, coach, why am I not playing, right? What can I do to improve? What can I do to get better, right? And maybe sometimes it's not even about um, something on the field. It's not a skill that you don't have. Maybe you are not being the leader. Maybe you are not supporting your teammates the way that you're supposed to, right? Maybe when your teammate lose the ball, you have an attitude about it, right? We see that a lot in professional athletes. Um, And I think it's very important for us to not look for external validation. So whatever you are doing right now, it might be in the sport that you're playing. It might be on the outside of the sport that you're playing. Don't look for external validation, and especially when you start to transition to other things in your life, and maybe while you're playing as well. Make sure you're not looking for external validation, right? I think it's nice to be the man of the match, the girl of the match, the player of the match, and all of that. But at the end of the day, like, if you did your best and your team, let's say your team won, you had goals and you achieve all those goals in that game. That's what truly matters, right? It's just, it doesn't have to be from other people to make you feel fulfilled. Because if you do, trust me, at the end of the day, along the way, along the path, you're gonna have a lot of trouble with that. So don't look for external validations. um Finding meaning in life in general, it's very complicated, right? I think I'm in search of the meaning of my life still. I think it's a constant growth and search of, um, what are we doing? What am I doing with my life? And I think if you do things in a genuine way, if you do things not only for yourself but for the people that you love, for people that care about you, I think you'll be okay, right? So I hope this podcast, this episode, give you at least some insights. Maybe you're not gonna exercise, not gonna do any of the exercise that I gave to you guys, but maybe it's just a quote from an author. Maybe whatever it is, it can add something to you, and that's what I'm looking for. And I hope that helps you finding the meaning that you're looking for outside the sport that you're playing. Because remember, before being an athlete, you are a human being. Thanks for listening. Make sure you guys follow the Athletic School on podcast on Spotify. At least I hope you're listening to other episodes as well. um, Follow us on YouTube, subscribe there. um, every like you can give us, it's it's extremely helpful. And I'm open to feedback, guys. If there is a topic that you want to listen to, maybe there's a guest that you want to hear about it, please let us know, let me know, and I'll do my best to bring the guest and address some of the things here. But yeah, thanks for listening, and I see you guys next time.